So, this is absolutely an album that I intended on reacting to because Black Orchid Empire have been one of my favorite bands, one of my most listened to bands of the last year or so. Just their songs have been so infectious to me, and I think they're one of the most underrated bands anywhere in the world right now. Unfortunately, right after I recorded my reaction to Diamond Morning, I got sick again. Somebody got me sick again. And I've been sick a lot recently. Like, I really can't think of the last time that I was full strength, 100% health. It was at least 2 months ago now. But I feel like I'm finally on the rise up again, and I have no intention of going back down, so I'm ready to start pumping out videos. And even though I got better pretty fast, I opted to just do a review instead, so you don't have to listen to me coughing and drinking water all the time and dealing with all that stuff during a reaction. At least that was part of the reason. The main reason is because I had no idea how long I was going to be out for, and I was too excited to listen to this album, so I basically laid out in bed, and the first thing I did was go, you know what, I'm just going to listen to this, and I'll probably listen to it about 10 to 20 times, because I know how catchy these guys are, I know how incredible their songwriting is, and I know the earworms that they make with their riffs. And I was right, I've listened to this album so many times already, and I have plenty of thoughts on it, which helped so much with doing a review. But these guys just keep getting better, and I think that's the main thing to talk about here, because every release they've put out has gotten better in my opinion. This is their best work so far, and they are just so damn consistent as a band. Now, this album is called Lore, and it's one of their longest albums in terms of tracks, with 12 tracks on here. A couple that are a bit shorter, but all in all, it's a fairly meaty album while still being well under an hour. And this is one of their more cohesive albums thematically, because every song has something to do with Greek mythology in some sort of way, about some sort of Greek god, Greek myth. And you got plenty of instrumental, melodic callbacks in the riffs, in the timing, in the different chord choices throughout the album. Specifically, I think the main one is this riff between Ivory and Labyrinth that I noticed that calls back later in the album that I think is super cool. And all in all, these elements make for one of their best flowing albums to date. I think probably their best flowing album, because track to track, the transitions and the placement of all these songs is fantastic as well, which is huge for me, because if there's one thing these guys can be known for, it's that they have a formula and equation that they stick to. And a lot of these songs are very similar in structure, especially the singles, which is, I think, a main point to talk about here, because yes, these guys have a very similar structure that they like to follow, and they've made a lot of similar songs over the years. Is this still their best work? Yes, I think all 6 of the singles, I only heard 4 of them before the album, and I do have reactions up to those 4 singles if you wanted to go check those out, because they're all fantastic songs. But there is nothing wrong with these songs. I mean, the choruses, the structures of the melodies are all fantastic, but most of these songs follow kind of an, you got an intro riff, you got a verse, you got a huge chorus, and then either back into that intro riff or into a second verse that's a little bit more elevated. Then you either got a quiet bridge or a breakdown, and then a final chorus with some sort of riff or transition out of the song. And that is what we've gotten used to with these guys. Now, have they gotten better at this formula and perfected it more and more over time? Absolutely. But I think at this point, they have quite literally mastered and perfected this songwriting formula. I think with something so simple but so effective if you do it right, these guys have some of the most memorable melodies and choruses in the game. And they've mastered this level of songwriting and this kind of song structure in particular. But from here on out, I don't think there's anywhere to go. I think they have completely used out that formula. I think they've mastered it to a point where they can just hang it up. We know they can make these kind of songs, these instantly gratifying bangers, because as much as I love these songs, my 3 favorite songs on the album are 3 that weren't singles, and they absolutely surprised me in the best way possible. You got the opening track, Skinwalker, which does follow this structure a little bit, but everything clicks in such a nice way. And both of the verses have such different progressions. As much as they're known for their choruses and their riffs, those verses, those little twists and turns that they make when the dynamics drop back, are actually the parts that have gotten stuck in my head the most, besides that main riff, which is unbelievably catchy. And then my 2 favorites are at the back end of the album, Siren of the Sea and Ivory, are 2 of their best songs that they've ever written. and they both surprised me with completely different structures, different approaches to the bridges, such patient songwriting from them that I'm not really used to, and I would love to see more of this from these guys in the future. There's a big part of me that's hoping that these singles they put out, they're so tight, incredibly catchy, great to listen to on repeat. I hope that was them just kind of getting the last of that out of their system in a way, because these songs we saw on the back end that are more developed, that are a bit longer, Siren of the Sea has this super slow build up into everything, acoustics washing in, and then it builds up to this kind of false chorus that becomes the outro of the song. You go into the second verse that's completely different, more of a bridge, and then you build it up into this riff progression that's so satisfying. You go up even higher, and you get this awesome elevated chorus with these chugs, and everything about that song surprised me. When each part kicked in, I went, no way they're actually going there. Are they going to turn this into something? And then they did. They really played into their progressive side here, and it's one of their most cohesive and interesting songs ever. And Ivory's my personal favorite on the album because the bridge is so expansive for them. They got this circulating arpeggio of pizzicato from, I believe, violins and cellos in there that's just so cool, such a great motion to it, and it makes that song unpredictable too because there really isn't a chorus. It doesn't start out with a riff, it goes straight into this moody bass riff, and then when they pause and go into that first chorus, you go, oh, here we go again, another one of those kind of simply structured songs. And then they drop you into this whole moody forest of a journey before slowly building up to this incredible breakdown on this kind of triplet cadence in the guitar. All that buildup and all that unsuspecting work that they do is what makes that breakdown so much more satisfying than the rest. And I do think the riff stands out too as one of the best riffs on the album. And I think if we got more surprises like this in the structure with these guys, it would just level these guys up to another tier because they're already so listenable. But there's so much more they can do, and they proved it with these songs. They proved that they're ready to take that next step. Now, whether we're talking about the more developed progressive tracks or just the undeniable bangers that are littered throughout the album, there are always two things that stand out with these guys. The riffs and the choruses are just fantastic. It's obvious how key of an element the riffs are to their music, and the guitar tone is so fuzzy and intertwined with the bass. They just have such nice chemistry. There are only 3 guys in this band, and the atmosphere and the level of sound, just the wall of sound that they're able to produce with these tones is incredible. It's incredible the amount of power that they're able to generate. And I think their production plays a big part in this. They have such a unique and recognizable production style. And I think it has such an interesting contrast because, again, there's a bit of a gravelly, dirty nature to the guitar tone and the bass tone that makes it very grimy, very heavy. It doesn't feel overly polished at all, but also everything kind of blends into itself in such a clear and crystally way when they're playing power chords and things that are supposed to just kind of wash over each other. You're able to hear each note, each tone so specifically and so clearly that everything stands out, when in other productions, other bands doing something similar would just sound shoegazy and all over the place, just like a huge bundle of sounds that don't go together. They make every note, every chord stand out here in such a crisp way. The riffs themselves, some are a bit more technical, some are a bit more simple, but always got a nice bouncy rhythmic cadence to them, and they're just so smart. Such memorable riffs that they're able to write, whether it's the breakdowns or the intro riffs. I'll always find one of them stuck in my head, maybe even a section from a verse, and I'll go, oh shit, I haven't listened to that in a couple weeks. I gotta go throw that on. I really can't stress enough how much I have listened to this album so far. They just make their sound so replayable, and a big reason for that are these memorable riffs. So here are a couple of my favorite examples if you haven't heard the album already. Now, their choruses are just the cherry on top of their sound that makes it perfect. Because again, only 3 guys in this band, and the sound, the amount of atmosphere and energy that comes from their choruses is massive. I really hope I get to see these guys grow to the level that they deserve to be at as a band one day, because these choruses are anthemic. They're stadium worthy. They deserve to be blasted through the biggest speakers in the biggest halls at the biggest venues. I think the drumming production is a huge part of that as well, just because the tone of the snare, the crack on everything. The drumming is so simple but so varied and tasteful in its own way in this band. Just great grooves, and the way he's able to sit back during the choruses, they kind of wash the crash out of the mix a little bit, so the guitars are able to shine and the vocals on top. Very simple formulas again, but they make these choruses memorable. The one that I'm really currently obsessed with right now is Scissor Mouth. That chorus is an absolute parasite. It just gets stuck in your brain. It is so addictive and absolutely warrants being in the song 3 times. Like, it really is that song, and I have no complaints about that. It's probably my favorite chorus on the album, but every single one is memorable in its own way. You know, you got the high kind of falsettos and the powerful harmonies on songs like Angel Fire. A super underrated and kind of grungy one is TriStar, one of the best songs on the album for me. I think maybe my 2 favorite singles are the 2 that I didn't react to, which is kind of crazy. So check out some of these choruses. Tell me they aren't absolutely massive. All in all, I do think this album is the natural progression for the band, and this is easily their best work so far in their career. But if anything, in doing so, they've shown that these guys absolutely have the potential for bigger and greater things. I think those more expansive moments on the album, those little risk factors, the risks that they were taking, were so satisfying, such a nice treat. I think they're absolutely ready as musicians and songwriters to jump a few more hurdles and face a few more challenges. They have it in them to be up there with the very, very, very best. Because there's nothing I would change about this album. Is it gonna compare, or is it gonna compete with the likes of Carmenyaca, Carnival, Cold Night for Alligators for Album of the Year, when those bands are doing something completely different in the scene, doing something we've never really seen before in the genre? Probably not. But will I be playing this album more than all of those? Very likely. And despite being very dark and heavy songs, I find myself always smiling when I put it on. I'm always reaching for this album. I'm always dancing around my room, dancing my way across campus, listening to these songs. And I couldn't be more thankful for this band. So I want to thank the guys at Black Orchid Empire once again for creating a fantastic album. I wish you guys the very best in the future with more releases. I think the sky is the limit for you guys, and I will see you all next time.